The story you're about to see is a big, fat lie. No names have been changed to protect anybody.
Let's get ready to rumble!
And now, the USCFL Network, in association with YouTube, presents the USCFL Postgame Show. Here's once again is Robbie Graham.
Greetings, cartoon and football fans. This is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network, bringing you the action and highlights of an interesting Week 11 of the USCFL's 2023 season. If you're joining us for the first time, may we extend to you a cordial welcome, and we hope you'll enjoy everything this channel has to offer. We also invite you to take a moment to subscribe to this channel and join our team. We strive to be one of YouTube's least offensive channels by providing a different spin about your favorite cartoon characters from the past and present that doesn't reflect on their true legacies. If your favorite character or characters aren't mentioned in our videos, please leave a comment and we will answer your questions. Also be sure to ring the bell to alert you of when we put up any new videos. The USCFL is now part of Patreon. You can help support us for as low as $3 US a month to as much as $5 US a month. In time, we can offer merchandise and other perks to help show your love for America's oldest fantasy football league. To you dads out there, we wish you a happy and safe Father's Day. After a short break, we will talk about and present the highlights of Game 21 between the Warner Brothers All-Stars and the Filmation All-Stars from Richmond, Virginia.
Last night I had the strangest dream. I sailed away to China in a little rowboat to find you, and you said you had to get your laundry clean. Didn't want no one to hold you, what does that mean? And you said, ain't nothing gonna break my stride, nobody gonna slow me down. Oh no, I got to keep on moving, ain't nothing gonna break my stride. I'm running and I won't touch ground. Oh no, I've got to keep on moving. You're on a roll and now you pray you last. The road behind was rocky, but now you...
Welcome back. 2023 has been an interesting season so far. Records have fallen and have been established. Some characters have dominated the stat sheets, and the season has been mostly full of surprises. In Friday's game against the Warner Brothers All-Stars and the Filmation All-Stars, it was another version of David against Goliath. To recap, Warner Brothers were blown out by Disney when they scored 48 unanswered points in Game 5. And in Game 14, they were blown away by DC Comics with 3 pick sixes late in the game. For Filmation, in Game 6 against Cartoon Network, they won by 1 point on a last-second field goal. In Game 11, they had no problems against the Classics. In short, we had another game between a winless team against an undefeated team. In round 3, only the 80s All-Stars did the unthinkable by beating Disney, who up to that point had dominated the league. In the first quarter, Warner Brothers got on the board first with a mid-range field goal. Then Filmation came back as Spinnerella scored from 4 yards out to go up 7-3. Wile E. Coyote's second field goal closed out the first quarter as Filmation led 7-6. In the second quarter, the Looney Tunes held Filmation scoreless with 2 more Wile E. Coyote field goals, and closing out the first half as Bugs Bunny connected with Plucky Duck of Tiny Toon Adventures to go up 19-7 at halftime. All that changed in the second half as Filmation came roaring back. Adora's only field goal of the game closed the gap 19-10. With under 4 minutes left in the third quarter, Spinnerella scored her second touchdown run from 7 yards out as Warner Brothers still led 19-17 at the end of the quarter. At this point in the game, She-Ra was held in check by not scoring a passing touchdown. All that changed as she first connected with Tila from 40 yards out, and with a successful 2-point conversion, Filmation went back up on top 25-19. Then with over 3.5 minutes left, she connected with her castmate Glimmer from 58 yards out, and with another successful 2-point conversion, gave Filmation a 33-19 win. Filmation will go on to the quarterfinals for the 4th straight year. while Warner Brothers are eliminated from the tournament and finishes in 12th place. As for the stats in this game, beginning with Warner Brothers, Bugs Bunny finished 25 of 49 for 347 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions, including a Hail Mary pass that, like with Disney, was 1 yard short. Daffy Duck rushed for only 51 yards on 27 carries. Speedy Gonzalez led the receivers with 9 catches for 97 yards. Dot Warner of Animaniacs led the defense with 6 tackles, 6 assists, and 1 sack. Wile E. Coyote finished with 13 points. For Filmation, She-Ra finished 21 of 44 for 335 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Spinnerella, the game MVP for the 3rd time, which is a Disney Bowl record, rushed for 116 yards on 34 carries and 2 touchdowns. Tila led the receivers for the 2nd time with 8 catches for 158 yards and 1 touchdown. Shadow Weaver led the defense with 7 tackles and 4 assists. Adora, who normally is the most accurate kicker in the league, finished with only 5 points and missed 2 field goals. In this game, Warner Brothers could have won if Filmation's defense hadn't stopped them when they got close. And with 8 sacks, they reduced Bugs Bunny to Hassenpfeffer. And here are the highlights of this game, courtesy of EA Sports. After a short break, we will talk about and present the highlights of an exciting Game 22 between the Cartoon Network All-Stars and the Jim Henson All-Stars in what could be their final USCFL game from Denver.
When you love someone, it's natural, not demanding. And that's one thing I'm proud to say I found in you. I'm so glad we reached an understanding. Now I know my heart is safe with you. Ooh. So now my love to you, baby, I surrender.
Welcome back. Before I describe Saturday's game, here's a brief profile of the Jim Henson All-Stars' time in the USCFL. They are the last of the original 7 teams that formed the league in 1981. They played in nearly 500 regularly scheduled games, not counting the playoffs. They appeared in the playoffs 13 times. They played for the league title 7 times and winning 3. With that said, if Saturday's game was to be Jim Henson's last, it would have closed out the most celebrated team in league history, and playing at home gave fans one last chance to say goodbye. But in Saturday's game, Cartoon Network was another winless team. They lost to Filmation by 1 point in Game 6 and 7 points to Nickelodeon in Game 16. As for Jim Henson, they lost to Marvel Comics in Game 3 and defeated Fox in their Disney Bowl 5 rematch in Game 10 on a last-second field goal. No matter who won or lost in this game, their season was over with. But for Jim Henson, it also would have closed out their entire existence in the USCFL. In the first quarter, Miss Piggy scored on a 1-yard touchdown run to go up 7-0. Cartoon Network tied the game 4 minutes later as Johnny Bravo connected with Brock Sampson of the Venture Brothers from 2 yards out. Then Kermit the Frog found the Great Gonzo for a 54-yard touchdown to go up 14-7. Towards the end of the quarter, Cartoon Network tied the game again as Johnny Bravo threw a second touchdown pass to Buttercup of the Powerpuff Girls. In the second quarter, it was all Cartoon Network, or should I say it was all Susan Tess from Johnny Tess, as she kicked three field goals to go up 23-14 at halftime. In the second half, Jim Henson came back as Kermit found Gonzo for the second time with a 13-yard touchdown pass to trail 23-21. Rolf put Jim Henson back on top with a 46-yard field goal to lead 24-21. Susan Tess put Cartoon Network back on top again with her 4th field goal to go up 26-24 at the end of the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, Kermit connected with Fozzie Bear from 6 yards out, and with a successful 2-point conversion, Jim Henson was back in the lead 32-26. Susan Tess kicked her 5th field goal to trail 32-29 with over 6.5 minutes left in the game. Jim Henson went into the lead for good as Kermit and Fozzie, for the second time, connected from 7 yards out to go up 39-29 just under the 2-minute warning. Cartoon Network somehow kept going as Johnny Bravo connected with Buttercup for the second time from 39 yards out to trail 39-36 with 1:18 left to play. but Rolf kicked his second field goal right at the end as Jim Henson won 42-36. Jim Henson will go on to the quarterfinals and keeps their legacy going for at least one more game, while Cartoon Network is eliminated from the tournament and finishes in 11th place. As for the stats in this exciting game, beginning with Cartoon Network, Johnny Bravo finished 32 of 51 for 504 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Steven Universe rushed for 66 yards on 28 carries. Buttercup led the receivers with 7 catches for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Ice King from Adventure Time led the defense with 10 tackles and 10 assists. Susan Tess finished with 18 points. For Jim Henson, Kermit the Frog, for the game MVP for the second time, finished 32 of 50 for 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. Miss Piggy rushed for 107 yards on 28 carries and 1 touchdown. Fozzie Bear led the receivers with 9 catches for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oscar the Grouch led the defense with 5 tackles and 5 assists. Rolf finished with 10 points. And here's the highlights of this exciting game, courtesy of EA Sports.
Just can't boogie no more.
After a short break, we will continue our series of player profiles with a character that until recently was a character everyone loved to hate, as we will profile Scrappy-Doo.
Change your heart if you would only change your mind. Instead of slamming down the phone, girl, for the 100th time. I got your number on my wall, but I ain't gonna make that call. When divided we stand, baby, united we fall. Got the time, got a chance, gonna make it. Got my hands on your heart, gonna take it. All I know, I can't fight this way. You could have it.
Welcome back. In 1979, Scooby-Doo was in his 10th year on television, but his ratings began to fall until Hanna-Barbera introduced this week's player we are profiling that ended up backfiring on them. Here in the USCFL, we call him the J.R. Ewing of animation. For you younger fans, J.R. Ewing was a character on the nighttime soap opera Dallas, and when he was shot in 1980, it left the entire world wondering who shot J.R. With the universal backlash that is Velma, and when Warner Brothers announced that there would be a second season earlier this week, we felt it necessary to profile Scrappy-Doo. And here is Word to tell us more about his time with Mystery Inc. and his time in the USCFL.
Scrappy-Doo is a fictional Great Dane puppy created by Hanna-Barbera Productions in 1979. He is the nephew of the titular Scooby-Doo. Scrappy has appeared in a number of the various incarnations of the Scooby-Doo cartoon series. Lenny Weinrib provided his voice for one season in 1979, and from 1980 on it was performed by Don Messick, who also voiced Scooby. In the first live-action theatrical film, video games, and commercials, he was voiced by Scott Innes, and portrayed by Rowan Atkinson. He was created to save the show's ratings, which by 1979 had begun to sink to the point of cancellation threats from ABC, who were considering choosing between Scooby-Doo and an unnamed pilot from Ruby Spears Enterprises which Mark Evanier had also written. Though Scrappy officially debuted in the fall of 1979, there may have been hints of his existence in 1969, as he bore a resemblance to Spears and Ruby's initial idea for a feisty little dog, which was one of the early ideas for the Scooby-Doo character himself, along with the big cowardly dog ultimately chosen. After hearing Joe Barbera's description of the character, writer Mark Evanier was significantly reminded of the Looney Tunes character Henry Hawk and incorporated what he knew of said character into the script. Scrappy's creation officially began in 1978, when Scooby-Doo's ratings were sinking to the point of cancellation threats from ABC. Dwayne Poole, a story editor for the first series Scrappy appeared in, recalled it as a lively time, with many new ideas and some new blood being hired with the desperation to revive Scooby-Doo, which had been a cash cow in its glory days. Mel Blanc was the first choice to voice Scrappy, given his connection to Henry Hawk, but wanted too much money to voice the part. Frank Welker, the voice of Fred Jones, auditioned to voice Scrappy as a dual role during the character's development, one of several voice actors considered for the role, and coined the catchphrase puppy power during his audition. He would later change this to Monkey Muscle for the similar Donkey Kong Jr. character he would voice for TV's Saturday Supercade. The next choice was Messick, who was seen as giving the best audition, but still deemed the wrong voice. Afterwards, other well-known cartoon voice artists were considered or suggested: Mel Blanc, Dawes Butler, Paul Winchell, Marilyn Schreffler, Howard Morris, Dick Beals, and Marshall Efron. Ultimately, Lenny Weinrib was chosen. Scrappy was initially seen as a good idea by Saturday Morning Review. Viewership seemed to react positively to Scrappy, as Scooby's ratings went up with Scrappy's arrival. The character continued to be a success for the next decade. Story editor Dwayne Poole noted, Scrappy solved a lot of story problems. Before you had to get Shaggy and Scooby into dangerous situations and there was no real easy way to get them there with Scrappy, he, picked them up and carried them there. He just charged in. He was just such the antithesis of what Scooby and Shaggy were. The dynamic was great fun to play. Joe Ruby and Ken Spears seemed to have a less than positive view on the character. The co-founder of Ruby Spears Enterprises said, everyone was upset, though was unclear about whether this concerned business reasons, they had started their own company 2 years earlier, or personal creative reasons, considering that if Scooby had been cancelled, then the last slot would have hit their show instead, starting when, in 1979, it looked a pilot of theirs would be renewed over Scooby's. Mark Evanier, who wrote said pilot, was hired impromptu to write Scrappy-Doo into a new pilot to renew interest in Scooby. As a result, Scooby was renewed over theirs, which was upsetting for them. Scrappy would charge in and solve things, so he was useful in that way. A lot of people made derogatory comments about it at the studio, and you don't want to be saddled with something based on, network, but I think I liked working with it most of those cartoons. Said Charles M. Hull, a writer who originally joined the franchise back on the new Scooby and Scrappy-Doo show and continued to work on various iterations of the show until finally ending his tenure in the late 80s after penning the pilot episode for a pup named Scooby-Doo. Tom Ruger stated, it's a lot easier to love Scooby than it is to love Scrappy. But I don't have the problem with Scrappy that I have heard expressed by others. I suspect this is because I wasn't watching Scooby from the beginning, but rather, I came in and started catching up quite a while, a couple of years, after Scrappy had made his debut. Hey, they'd been messing with Scooby's cast for years. Scooby dumb. All those nasty celebrity cameo Scooby movies. I dislike those things more than I dislike Scrappy. And, for what it's worth, at least Scrappy brings some energy to the table. He actually does have a personality, even though many find it obnoxious. So, since I tend to love the characters with whom I work, I can say that I learned to love Scrappy, despite all his limitations. Casper Kelly, one of the writers of the Scooby-Doo project, also admitted to having Scrappy as being in his first memory of Scooby, as well as enjoying when the monsters were real over the traditional fake monster format. In 1999, celebrating Scooby-Doo's 30th anniversary, several newspapers printed articles, some of which mentioned Scrappy. In an episode of the 2011 series Scooby-Doo, Mystery Incorporated, Scrappy appeared in a brief cameo when Fred and Daphne visited a museum celebrating their exploits, to which Fred claimed we all promised each other that we would never speak of him. In 2020, Casper Kelly stated that many writers did not actually hate Scrappy, implying that it was a joke and mandate. As for his time in the USCFL, Scrappy joined Scooby-Doo's team in 1983 and became the team's running back. He led or was one of the top running backs in the league for nearly a decade. He played on 5 championship teams, 3 with Scooby-Doo independently and 2 with Hanna-Barbera, and was the game MVP of Go for the Gold 14 in 1986. After Scooby-Doo merged with Hanna-Barbera in 1994, Scrappy played backup to Wilma Flintstone and has been there ever since. But when he is inserted in the game, he has pulled Hanna-Barbera out of some sticky situations. The following is a brand new video featuring Scrappy from the first year he was with the gang. Although Scooby-Doo fans hates him, but with the Hanna-Barbera All-Stars Scrappy is beloved and he gives the fans something to cheer about along with a good dose of puppy power.
Uncle Scooby? Hi, I'm Scrappy-Doo.
Scrappy-Doo?
Let me at him! Let me at him! Let me at him! Let me at him!
Scooby, Scrappy-Dappy-Doo, Scooby,
Scrappy-Dappy-Doo!
Scooby, Scrappy-Dappy-Doo.
Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta! Puppy power!
Scrappy-Doo?
Uncle Scooby? Scrappy-Dappy-Doo!
Scooby-Dooby-Doo?
haven't seen.
Look away, Daphne. We all promised each other that we would never speak of him. Not ever.
When Daphne returned to the series in 1983, and after Don Messick began voicing him, Scrappy did mellow out some. But now comparing him to the new Velma series, I think fans would agree that Scrappy wasn't so bad after all. After one final break, we will reveal the answer to last week's trivia question, this week's question, and a preview of the final 2 games of round 3. Welcome back. Now for the answer to last week's trivia question. We asked which sport wasn't the subject of a Tom and Jerry cartoon during Hollywood's golden age. If you guessed baseball, you are correct. Think about this. Tom could easily swing a baseball bat, but Jerry would have trouble. Although he did swing a golf club, a baseball bat would simply be too heavy for a mouse to swing with. Now for this week's question. This week's question is a true or false question. Remember, true or false questions do not have a degree of difficulty, for you have a 50-50 chance of being correct. Also, if you're taking part in our trivia questions, please do not put your answers in the comments section, for you might give away the correct answer. Be sure to put your answers down on paper and check back with us each week. Now for the question, true or false? Woody Woodpecker was the last cartoon character to have short cartoons before a featured motion picture. We'll have the answer for you next week. And that will wrap things up for Week 11 of the USCFL's 2023 season. Next week, Round 3 will conclude, as we will talk about and present the highlights of Game 23 between the defending champion Fox All-Stars and the Nickelodeon All-Stars from Detroit, and the highlights of Game 24 between Team Canada and the Hanna-Barbera All-Stars from Atlanta. Which 2 teams will round out the quarterfinal roster and which 2 will go home? Find out next week, along with another player profile in the USCFL. Again, we wish all you dads out there a happy and safe Father's Day. And remember to help support us on Patreon for as low as $3 a month. And until next Sunday, this is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network wishing you peace. Take care and stay safe.
Perfect vision. You thought I couldn't last without you, but I'm lasting.
All the characters and franchises mentioned throughout this webcast remains the copyright of their respective owners. They were used for the purpose of entertainment and or education, and therefore no breach of any copyright laws were intended. This webcast is protected under copyright and must not be rewritten, re-recorded, rebroadcast or re-uploaded in whole or in part without the prior written consent of First and 10 Productions, the American Association of Animation, and the United States Cartoon Football League. Copyright 2023.